So that's probably the question we get more often than anything else is why Merlot? How did we start or decide to start making Merlot to get MTGA up and running? And it's oddly enough kind of a long story, but I'll try and get through it as quickly as I can. And it really started when I moved back home to Napa. And this was 2009. I worked part-time at a couple wineries in 2008 as well, kind of in between, like during summer break and vacations and stuff like that away from school. And then when I moved back, I kept working in tasting rooms and cellars. And as I was getting more and more into it, I figured, I'm going to try and go wine tasting. I'm going to try and see what other people are doing, check out some of the new labels, retry some of the, great wines that I love and just see how they're doing. Like I just wanted to kind of immerse myself into wine tasting again because I hadn't been doing it for a long time. And there was one day in particular, and I went out, I was going to 3 different wineries, and they were all known, as you might expect, they're all known as for their Cabernet. That was what those were their flagships, those were their highest end wines, the most expensive wines. So naturally, like as you get to the end of the tasting, when you start tasting those big Cabernets, you get a little excited. You're like, all right, this is gonna be awesome. Can't wait to try the good stuff. And unfortunately, I guess at each stop that day, I was super disappointed. I was so disenchanted with Cabernet by the end of it. I'm like, there was just nothing interesting about the wines. And again, like in hindsight, I was 22 years old. No real perspective. I was just trying to figure out if I liked these wines, and I simply didn't. Again, totally subjective. There's nothing interesting about them. I was like, if you put all these into a blind tasting, I didn't know what they were, I wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Like there was no way. They all were so similar and just boring. So right upon moving home, I had a terrible experience tasting Cabernet, and that continued through that next year and into 2010. And I was just like, man, I just can't wrap my head around Napa Cab right now. It's just not interesting to me. And maybe I was just tired of it. Maybe just being around it, growing up in it, I was just maybe Cabernet just wasn't my thing at that time. So, but I did fall in love with Petit Syrah of all things. Because I still loved big red wine. So Petit Syrah became the alternative. I was like, hey, here's still this big red wine that's got all this structure, all this flavor, but it's not Cab, so it kind of filled that gap for me. And in 2010, after I'd taken a couple classes to learn a little more of the science and kind of chemistry behind winemaking, viticulture, I was like, if I'm going to try and make a little bit of wine, let's make Petit Syrah. That was my first idea. I was like, I'm going to make Petit Syrah. It wasn't going to be Merlot, it wasn't going to be Riesling or Pinot or Cabernet. It was going to be Petit Syrah. And the reason for that was, one, I loved it. Being a little disenchanted with Cabernet at the time, I was like, boom, let's make something that I know I'm going to like. 2, it was a lot cheaper than Cabernet. I think at the time, the Petit Syrah I was looking at, the vineyard I found was somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000 for a ton of grapes. Cabernet was easily double or triple that. So there was just no chance I was going to be able to afford to make Cabernet. So the finances came into it as well. So I had to settle for something else. But Petit Syrah ended up being it. Before Merlot, Petit Syrah was the plan. And I had the contract in hand. I had signed it. I needed to take it back to the grower so that he could sign it. And then I would be getting 2 tons of Petit Syrah, actually, because I got a halfway decent deal on it. And I got a voicemail from him. Somehow I didn't get the call, it didn't go through, but I heard my phone ping because of the voicemail. I pulled over, I think I was on Zinfandel Lane at the time. And he left a voicemail that basically said, listen, so sorry, but we have someone who wants the entire vineyard. You're only taking a couple of tons, so we have to go with the person who's going to buy all of it. Sorry, thank you for your time. Have a great harvest. And I was super angry about it at the time. I was not happy, but it makes sense, in hindsight. So Petit Syrah was out the window. I was like, damn it, I don't have, and this was into August, early September at this point. So I was like, man, maybe if it doesn't happen this year, it just doesn't happen this year. But I put my feelers out to friends, colleagues, family. I was like, hey, if you know of anyone with some vineyards that have extra fruit, let me know. Petit Syrah is number 1 on the list, but I just want to make a big red, not Cabernet, because I can't afford it. And a colleague of mine at the time gave me a shout and was like, hey, we have these friends of ours that live a little bit south of St. Helena. They have this Merlot vineyard. They weren't able to get a contract for it. They're basically saying, hey, if you come and pick it, just kick us back a few cases when you're done making it and we'll call it even. And I was like, that's within my budget for sure. So went out there, and it happened to be Merlot. Went out there, picked it, and that's how we got into Merlot. It was like this hop, skip, and a jump of, I'm back in Napa, I don't like Cabernet. Petit Syrah is my thing, but that fell through, and this fell in my lap. And ever since then, it was Merlot. So we made that first year, 2010, and started barrel sampling it for people. They enjoyed it. I was like, oh, maybe there's a thing to this Merlot that we're making. So the next year I was able to save up. We got an official contract for the vineyard we wanted to use, and bought 3 tons, and we became a Merlot producer. And people told us we were crazy. They're like, Merlot, no one likes Merlot, no one's gonna buy Merlot. It's like, why, like, you're in Napa, make a Cabernet. And me the whole time I was like, I don't have the money to make Cabernet. Like, I don't have any investors, I don't have anyone like providing cheap, like super cheap fruit. There's no way. Like in Merlot, like Petit Syrah, I mean, those varieties were half the price of Cabernet. So like that's the story. That's how we got into Merlot. It was purely me being like a punky 22-year-old who didn't like Napa Cab, that tried to make something else that didn't fall, that fell through and didn't work out. And then I just ended up with Merlot in my lap, and we became a Merlot producer ever since. Man, realistically, love it. Like it's kind of cool to champion that variety and mess around with it like we do. It's a ton of fun, and man, wouldn't trade it for anything.